beginning of the 80s. How many cars have you seen on the street in Beijing or Shanghai or whatever? A couple, not too many. So really starting the development of car industry and foreign cars getting into the market and so on. So the history in China is just a couple of years. So having a certain understanding or a certain feeling and a compassion towards the car is again depending on the traditional background you have in the development. So for Europeans, a car has been something which we are used to. Also for the Americans, you're used to that. You have a car, you have been driving the car, you're used to that, and you have a certain requirements towards a car. And when you sit into a car, you hear how it sounds. You hear, when you close the door, you hear whether it's a good car or a bad car. You hear it. When you open the window and you close the window, you hear it. So Europeans, they have a very strong relationship to what a car means. And we have a specific understanding when we talk about the car. And then, of course, it's safety. So sitting in a car wants to make you feel safe, and when you have the crash tests, and your car is just always the worst one coming out of the crash tests, you have a problem. So here, making a car safe is very complicated, and it's not just about hardware, and it's not just about technology, but it's about that car having been driven over and over and over again. And it's about that car having been driven in so many different environments. And being comfortable requires sitting in a car and driving through Europe. And then you have the feeling whether the car is comfortable or not. And then you know when you are driving on snow, when it's snowing outside, how do you feel in your car? You see, for us, is when it's winter. I myself, I like driving cars. I love my car. And when it's winter and I sit in my car, and then you have that special feeling of, I don't know, it's winter, it's snowing, and you love it. Or when it's summer, it's warm, but you like to open the window. It's not 30 or 40 or 50 degrees outside where you have to turn on the air conditioning. It's a different feeling. You have a different relationship to the environment. So for Europeans, a car has a very special meaning. If a Chinese car producer, you want to be successful overseas, just producing a car that might look very nice on the outside does not make sense. You cannot get into such highly established and highly major markets like the European market without doing a lot of effort. It doesn't help if you just purchase a foreign car brand because you think you are successful. It is important because nobody knows your brand. And to be straightforward, if you're a Chinese car producer and now you're going to European markets, nobody knows you. This doesn't matter. It was the same with other countries in the past. If you look at other countries in Asia, and I look back when I was young, when I was still very young, and everybody just went for a German car. You would have a German car. It wouldn't have made sense to have a non-German car because everybody would have said look at the car. Nobody wants to have the car. But it changed over the years. And so with the Chinese automobile industry, we change over the years. On the one side, it takes time. But in most cases, now there's not so much time available anymore. So you can say, well, I just take another 20, 30 years. In 20, 30 years, what is it? And the car industry it's very tough. It requires a lot of innovation. And Europeans, they have that innovation. So it's very hard for a Chinese company to beat them. So many of them, they follow the strategy of purchasing a brand to get into the market and growing up. But it's a tricky thing, because the brand is not everything. If you cannot manage the brand, it's going to be very difficult. And there's a difference between selling a computer in Europe and selling a car in Europe. You know, a computer, you turn it on, some lights flash, the screen pops up, and then you just type. But a car is very different, because people actually have to sit in the car, and it's part of your life. The second example is Volvo. Now, Volvo is a brand of Ford, American brand. Volvo is a Swedish company, so based in Sweden. It's the biggest automotive company in Northern Europe, established 1927, very long history. And even up to now, people think it's the safest car you can drive. And you know what the reason was? When we look back, maybe 20 years, we look back at European cars. You know, that time, if you looked at BMW or Audi, somehow they were, you know, they always tried to be very streamlined and looking very nice from the outside. And Volvo always was like a tank, you know, big, huge, massive. You had the bumpers, you know, just being huge. So everybody thought when you drove a Volvo, it's like coming with a tank. And what they did, I remember, you know, many young people, when their father had a Volvo, they would show off and show their friends, say, look, I have a Volvo and you want to see how safe it is? Do you want to believe? And do you know what they did? On purpose, they hit something. Yeah, really. So they just would hit maybe, you know, a small tree. And then they got out of the car and they say, hey, look at my Volvo. No scratch. That's the Volvo. So for the Europeans, a Volvo always was not a nice car, sorry, but it was a very safe car. Extremely safe. So people loved Volvo. So when Chinese purchased the Volvo brand, they would maybe look at that car as being safe, of being reliable, and this might have been the main driver why buying the brand. But then again, it depends what you as a customer perceive when you look at the car. So Volvo is really considered to be very safe and, you know, almost a big, like a truck, as I said. But compared to other car brands, the perception is very different. So there's a difference again when you purchase a brand if you do not know what comes with the brand. So the strategy of Chinese companies getting into the, let's say, European market or American market through purchasing a brand is double-sided. And it also can be a risk. Because if you do not know the background of that brand, so what has a European, what do they understand about the brand? And if you do not take your time and understand the real background of how Europeans think about the brand, you also might run a risk when purchasing the brand. Now, how did it work? Now look here. If you look here at the performance of the automotive industry. So as I've been explaining, looking at the brand, believing the brand is very good, you know, good reputation, good quality. And then you think, well, fair enough, you know, I buy the brand, I have the brand, it's very renowned, it's good reputation, and this brand helps me to get into the market. It's not that easy. And you can see here the performance has not been very good. And again here, the point is that